From Marmo Studio, here's Jim Bratton.
Hi, this is Jim Bratton, and we're recording from Conference Room 206 at Marmo Plaza. And today we're talking to Samantha Whitton. Thanks for joining us, Samantha.
Hey, thank you. Yeah.
Samantha, you have a twofold reason that we're talking today. Number one, you work with the Canon Group, right? That is an associate of Marmo in this Flex workspace and everything.
Yeah.
And when did that start? And then we want to talk about you as an author.
Okay.
And so let's talk just a little bit how your work might have led into your becoming an author. And then I want to talk about you and the book and your motivation for being an author.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah, I started with the Canon in 2021,
right,
where we partnered with Marmo. And so from there, I kind of grew into a relationship with Marmo and have been coming here ever since.
Yeah. So, working relationship with Marmo because of your work with the Canon.
Mm-hmm.
And then you started, coming to Marmo periodically?
Yeah. I used to work mainly out of the Marmo only.
Right.
But in 2022, I had my first baby, and so that changed my work relationship. That changed my whole life, really.
Yes, as I'm sure it does. So you're working for the Canon, but primarily out of Marmo.
Yep.
Because you're
from home,
and you're Galveston based.
I am.
Had a baby.
Yep.
Changed everything. I'm guessing this is sort of where writing a book sort of came in. Then
Definitely.
Tell me about that transition, and then I really want to talk about your personal creative process. I just think it's so exciting somebody can just reach up into space and put word to paper. And I want to talk about how you did that.
Okay.
All right. Transitioning to the book. How'd that all start?
So it all started last December. I was, of course, reading a ton of children's books to my babies. And now I have two. So I had one in 2022, and then I had one in 2023. So back to back. And I had last year, we really spent a lot of time at a speech therapist's office with my son, because he had turned 1 and he still wasn't really saying anything that he was supposed to. You know, they have these milestones, that they're supposed to make, but he hadn't quite made them yet. And we weren't sure if it was time to be concerned or not.
This was your first.
My first.
So this is your prototype.
Exactly. You know, you always worry when you're starting off that you're not doing something right, or you could do something better. We did take him to speech therapy, where we met a really awesome therapist, and she taught us a ton of really awesome tools. One of them being animal sounds. You know, that's a really fun thing for little kids.
Yeah.
And it's really the foundation to making words, is making sounds, right? Like the cow says, you wait. Yeah, you wait for the kid. The baby, they know the sounds, but it just takes them a little bit of time to process. So me and my son were going through these animals like crazy. I was even drawing pictures of cows and of ducks and all these fun characters. And when I would draw these characters, he would just light up and he would moo and he would quack, and it was really fun.
So the byproduct of identifying the animals and their sounds, however, exercise in phonics in how to create the sound.
Exactly. And I got to pull my creativity into it. You know, I was just making these little drawings as fun.
Yeah.
But I could just see him light up with the little cow I was drawing, or the ducks, or the llama, or, you know, all these different animals. So that's kind of what turned into my first book. And I thought, you know, if he loves it, other babies would love it. So I kind of put together the super basic animal book, The Sounds of the Farm. So that's where it all started.
Really?
And thinking back on the process, you know, that idea started, and I thought, you know, why not me? Why can't I do this? You know, and so I started doing research on how people get their books published and, you know, publishing houses and the process for that. And then I found self-publishing, and I found, of course, YouTube has all of the knowledge in the world. You can find almost any
You
kind of
can.
video on YouTube.
And you have to just sort out which is correct and which isn't. When you can
Exactly.
learn a lot.
Yeah, through trial and error and trying something for yourself. I learned all about creating a DBA. I learned about self-publishing using KDP, which is Kindle Direct Publishing. So
Right. That's an on-demand, right?
Exactly.
So you don't have a trunk full of books.
Exactly. I started off with really low overhead. So, I mean, I paid for my ISBN numbers because I wanted them mine. I paid for my copyright.
Right.
But I did my own illustrating. I did my own, book creation, like a lot of it through Canva and a little bit of Photoshop to put my
Clean up a little bit.
Yeah, my images into a actual Word document onto the computer and kind of clean up and put in colors, and it really made it my own. And that was really an exciting process. And that was my first book.
I'm just sitting here stunned. Talk about a self-educated. So you were driven by, a lot of times people just have a story that they have to put out there. You were driven by practicality. On publishing this for need.
I think I work that way. Yeah. I do a lot of things.
It wasn't like this was a story waiting to jump out of your brain or something. This was a story that created as a scenario that you lived.
Yeah, for sure. It was really, you're right. It was really practical. It was meant to, first help my son, but now I'm hoping it'll help my daughter because she's at the same stage where he was a year ago.
Similar.
So exactly. And so what I was doing with him on the pages of my sketchbook, now I can do with her in the pages of my book. So it's really cool.
I'm just sitting here awestruck. Okay. I mean, the fact that you saw a practical application and did a creative project to solve it. And then you had the linear thinking to work your way through the whole process. Mm-hmm. Just getting the proper copyright and then looking at this self-publish or on-demand publishing, basically. Are you still doing it that way?
I am. Yeah,
so
I am.
You don't have any inventory.
So, well, now I do. But, okay, so, things progress in a way that in the beginning, I set myself a goal. I learned all about this self-publishing thing, and I told myself, I want to do this more. I don't want to just do this one book. I want to do it in English and Spanish because my husband's Mexican and his whole family speaks Spanish, and we really want to raise our kids bilingual. So we practice Spanish daily. And did you know that animals make different sounds in different languages? Like the dog says wolf in English, right?
Yeah.
But in Spanish, el perro dice wow, wow. So it's different.
So a dog speaks wow, wow.
Uh-huh.
I just think this is smart. So you had to, it's just getting deeper and deeper and deeper. So you had to go full bicultural to do the Spanish language book.
Yeah.
You couldn't just do this is not Google Translates that you can use.
No, I had to talk to friends who speak Spanish. My husband's mom helped out a lot. Yeah. She reread everything that I wrote, and I wanted to make sure everything was correct and sounded right.
The text too, yeah.
Of course, yeah. I didn't want to put something out there that was, like you said, Google translated or, it sounds right in English, but that's not really how we say it in Spanish,
It's so good to have somebody doing that for you because you could have been grammatically correct in Spanish.
Exactly.
But it sucked.
Yeah, exactly.
Could have been made something horrible.
Exactly. So I definitely feel very lucky for that. I've had the suggestion from certain business people in my life, you should make it into all these different languages, every language. And I'm like, well, I don't know anyone who speaks, I don't know.
Cool.
Every language.
They have to be beyond just being a linguist.
Mm-hmm.
They have to be a culturalist as well. I mean, they got to know the contextual aspect. Sure.
Right. And kind of either dig back into their childhood or have a child that they are doing this practice with. Like, really, how do you say this to a child to get them to start making these sounds or start understanding these words? And in the, like you said, in the context of that animal or of making that sound or being in a farm. So
my mind is working in the background on this. Wow, what a great potential. How long are these books?
super short.
Yeah.
So that book, The Sounds of the Farm, it started off as something super short. There's one animal per page.
Right.
So the animal's on one side of the page, the words are on the other. The words are really big. So the animal's pretty big too. So you see the animal, you associate the words. So we can also start working on the words the cow says.
So you're visualizing
Yeah, you can really
the textual language.
right. You can really point out the words. You can really point out the letters. They're big. It's not a bunch of words like jumbled on a page or a bunch of images jumbled on a page. It's really simple and meant for taking in like that animal or that sound.
Wow.
And when the kid's ready, you just say, turn the page, and they love flipping the page.
And this is made for a parent, guardian, etc., to read with that child.
Yeah. It's, I really made it with the intention of, for small children who are learning to speak and to speak and make those sounds. But I found that I have a friend who works as like I don't even know what to call her position, but she's like a stay-at-home nurse with a special needs boy.
Yes,
and
yeah.
he loves the book. It really gets him excited making these sounds. I'm not sure what goes into that because that's not my background. My background's not education. I have a lot of people ask me if I'm a teacher. No, I'm just a mom.
What was your business background before this? Anything that led to this at all?
I mean, I went to school for entrepreneurship and supply chain management, but after I graduated, I really leaned into the entrepreneurship.
Where?
Really enjoy working with startups, with advisors. I have a lot of great people in my network that I can talk to about what's the right move, and I really love connecting different people and making things happen. I'm not the doer. Oh, sorry.
We're good.
I'm not the doer, but I like to be the connector or the
Facilitators?
Yeah. That's really fun to
the fact that you studied entrepreneurship it led you to the correct process for self-teaching, I think. But the thing is about how to build the way to do this.
No, I really think,
Am I wrong?
Yeah, because entrepreneurship, like learning it in school is great, but you don't have to have that to be able to start a business or start
understood.
doing
I didn't mean to make it's not exclusionary. No,
Yeah,
I'm saying it,
absolutely. I think it really helped, and it really helped me with the mindset of I don't know if it's my age or the fact that I'm a woman or what it is, but there's a lot of self-doubt, and it's like, well, I'm not really an artist, or I'm not really an author. I don't have this great idea. There's a lot of self-doubt, but the fact that I did go through that program through school, I think it gave me a lot of like, anybody can do this. Of course I can do this. It gave me that like feeling back, I think. So
you had an idea that worked. Have you enjoyed success with the book as well?
Yeah. I mean, it's still new. I mean, I first published this one in January.
Right.
And from there, I made the book in Spanish. I made it into a coloring book. I kind of expanded the ways that I thought I could to really see which one gains the most traction. Is the Spanish version more popular? I've had people suggest, why don't you put the Spanish and English together in a book? And I've thought about that. I may still do that. I also, while I was doing that, we talk about those ideas for a book. I did have an idea for like an actual storyline book, and that process was a lot more complicated because I wasn't ready, or still not. I mean, I do see myself now as like somewhat of an artist, but not like in the way that sometimes these illustrators can really bring a story to a page through their pictures.
You're right. And I think you're more of an artist than you're giving yourself credit for, but it's okay to be cautious.
Sure.
that rather than put a product out there that just is not up to your standards.
Right. That's a big part of it too. I really, when I hit publish, I really wanted it to be at the spot that I wanted it to be at.
Yes.
There is something to say about the MVP, or the minimal viable product, just putting the first version out there and seeing how it grows. And I think I kind of did that with Sounds of the Farm, but I also wanted to play around with me writing a book, like a little story, and then having someone else illustrate. That process took a lot longer. When I made Sounds of the Farm, I had most of the animals drawn already. I'd already drawn these animals over and over and over, so I kind of had an idea of what I wanted. But when I made Benny's Playground Adventure, that book took me about 6 months from ideation all the way to publishing, which still I don't think is that long, especially when I worked with an illustrator to go over version.
Incredible. I think, how did you find your illustrator? How did you find an illustrator you matched up with?
I found him on Fiverr. So yeah, absolutely. I know it's probably not good to promote outsourcing, but I was able to go through a ton of different people, ask for samples from each, and I had this vision of one of the pages in the book, and I asked a handful of people that I saw their work on Fiverr. They post their illustrations, and I asked them, here's the story, or here's the words that are going to be on this page, and this is kind of the background of the story. This is who I want my characters to be. This is how their emotions are. This is how they look. Now, put in your personality and make this page happen. And it was a page of this boy looking up at this really tall red slide. And I got a few versions back that were okay. And, technically it was what I asked for.
Right, technically.
But when I just knew when I found the right illustrator, because the point of view was from kind of down on the boy's level, looking up at this huge red slide, and you could see it just got when you're looking at perspective, it's big on the bottom and kind of towers up, it gets smaller, and so it gave that feeling of, wow, that's a really tall slide, and that's what I wanted. I wanted it to be this thing to accomplish, for this little boy, and that's what he brought me, and so that's the illustrator I went with.
Awesome, and a little bit ominous. Yeah, a little challenging.
It presented as a challenge.
Male or female illustrator?
It was a male.
He probably, I was going to ask that because he may have been able to see it from a little boy's perspective.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, he may have had that someplace in his life that he jumped back on, where he'd seen that and grasped exactly. Has that continuum of sameness worked its way through the other illustrations then? I mean, is he able to capture it?
Yeah, it was really awesome, because once I decided to work with him, we kind of went through the whole book together. I sent him page for page what I was thinking. I also really liked his style, so I kind of wanted him to have some creative freedoms as well. So we talked about, where there was freedom and where maybe there wasn't. And it was a really cool process, and he was super respectful through the whole thing. He took direction really well. We were able to communicate so well. He's not from the U.S. I think I'm going to forget now, but he's from Europe.
So the guardrails were not a problem. You could put a few guardrails in and not stymie creativity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now that is quite a working relationship in the creative side of things.
To be a world away, too, and to be able to communicate so well was a really cool experience.
It may not be a bad thing to have that little bit of Euro influence.
Yeah, I think so.
I think there's it's a different approach sometimes.
Yeah.
More whimsical than we're inclined to be sometimes, I think.
I like that. I think that's should be a part of childhood, for sure.
We've used up a lot of time. I would love to do a couple of episodes about this.
Okay.
Because you have got just the challenges that you just walk through. And you're saying you've got basically a 6-month turnaround time on from
for that one. Yeah, I want to make that one into a series. That one, it was a 6-month turnaround time, but I think because I worked with this illustrator, I would work with him again on the series because I want consistency. So I think because we've had this time together, I think that the turnaround time going forward might even be quicker.
less.
Yeah, I really do think so. For each book, I have an idea for about 10 books in the series, and they're all just basics about being a kid, things you go through, challenges you face. Speaking of challenges, I know we're probably running out of
That's
time.
okay. This is I think our listeners will be as interested as I am, and
Okay.
and this is not broadcast. They don't have a spot coming up or a break to take. So
Okay.
keep on going.
Okay, awesome. So that I talked about my Sounds of the Farm. I talked about the children's book that I illustrated. At the same time, the business side of me
I was going to lead to that because you are a trained entrepreneur. And in some place, the profit motive has got to show up in here.
Absolutely.
I'm waiting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I'm doing a lot of trial and error, right? What works, what gets traction, what costs me more. Of course, hiring an illustrator,
There's a fixed cost.
and it took longer. That was
It was money.
yeah, that was less motivating to continue this series that I want to continue because it's taken me more money, whereas my Sounds of the Farm book was virtually free for me to make because I drew it, I wrote it, I put it together in Canvas. It took time, but so did the other book.
But, so where are you going to go? You're going to keep on using Outside Illustrator, right?
I think so,
Because,
yeah.
You can, okay, the first one you did all yourself. We can all do that.
Uh-huh.
But if you reach a sense of scale on this, I'm thinking there's a point where you can't afford to do it all yourself from a time perspective and everything else.
But also, right, exactly, because I do have 2 small children. It is really time consuming, and I have other things that I'm working on in my life. I have a full-time job,
Right.
I have other goals and aspirations. I have one more book that I kind of want to talk about.
Okay, please let's. And what we'll do is, if we run a little bit long, we'll do this as episode 2.
Okay.
So you've got another book that you are talking about now.
Yeah. So it's my, I would say 5th book, if you count Sounds of the Farm in English, Sounds of the Farm in Spanish, the coloring book, even though all those are kind of the same thing.
Right.
And then Benny's Playground Adventure, Story of Bravery is a children's book. And the last one I made was more of a journal. So a lot of pages that have a lot of lines, but also pages that have so the book came from, I just had 2 babies. I experienced postpartum issues that all mothers
Right. It's not uniquely yours,
Exactly.
but not always talked about.
often not talked about and often not, recognized. I think a lot of women go through having a baby and then all of the attention is on the baby. How's the baby doing? Oh, what's the baby doing now? All
Think about it. I am a childless male. Okay, no cats right now, but I am childless, and so I have nephews, nieces, and that, but I haven't had this firsthand. So it's interesting listening to this story.
Yeah. So there's a lot that women go through in the first few weeks to few months right after having a baby, plus a ton of hormone changes and all this pressure to be a certain type of mom from all these outside sources, and then pain from delivery, whether you gave birth,
Anyway,
yeah, we don't have to go on the details, but there's multiple ways and there's multiple ways of healing, and there's sometimes people recover really well and they don't need to talk about it and they love just talking about the baby, but other times I feel like women go through all this pain that's not addressed and not all these challenges that aren't looked at, and they don't really have time for self-reflection on how they're feeling or what they've experienced or how to move forward. it's all about the baby afterwards, which is fine because it's a whole new life.
That's right.
But I wanted to create something for women that's just for them, just for the mom. It barely talks about the baby. It's got, I think, about 10 sections about common challenges, like feeding challenges. You have a lot of pressure a lot of the times to feed a certain way, or to use formula or not to use formula, or to do things just a certain way. And I wanted to make this book to be about positive affirmations, that their choice is theirs and that's okay. So I created 10 sections. Each section follows a challenge. And then in the following pages to those sections, it has an affirmation right at top and a place for them to write how they're feeling that day, and maybe a little journal entry about something positive about that challenge, how they're working to overcome it. And so it's a really intentional journal. And I think it is different from my other books because it's not geared towards small children. It's geared towards new moms. But I think all of my books do follow a similar theme, as in they're great baby shower gifts.
Right.
They're great gifts for moms. They're great gifts for people who are going through these really big life changes.
And it sounds like another thing is that they're all very positive.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I don't hear any pity party going on here at all. When you talk about, the way you talk about it, so like the challenges, matter of factly, they're real.
Yeah.
But you address them matter of factly, not like they're the only person that ever went through that.
Absolutely. But it can feel that way sometimes.
I'm sure it does, because many times I'm sure you're socially isolated.
That's a big part of that journal. Yeah. It talks about how to, some tools that you can use to try to reach out, because sometimes it's like you don't feel like asking for help when you need it. And I think that goes beyond just women who have a new baby, a new life. I think that goes for a lot of people who may need someone to talk to, or may need help in one way or another, but they don't feel like they're worthy of asking for help, or they're worth someone's time to ask for help.
It's worth, and maybe independence, both. Sometimes the most self-sufficient are the last ones to ask.
Absolutely.
And the most vulnerable in some respects, I'm sure, because of that.
Yeah, I think so.
You're really touching on some interesting, all of your, this whole thing from speech to your last book.
Mm-hmm.
This has been a delightful conversation.
Thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me.
I'm sure we've got more coming, so we'll make a list of future podcasts we can do together, all right? Because I think you've got a lot to say.
Thanks.
We'll put the information about the books on the head of the podcast, but in the meantime, if you can just list the books real quickly.
Sure. Yeah, I have The Sounds of the Farm. I have The Sounds of the Farm coloring book. Those are both in English. Then Sonidos de la Granja is The Sounds of the Farm in Spanish. And then I have Benny's Playground Adventure, A Story of Bravery, and then the New Mom Affirmation Journal. And those are all available on Amazon because I really wanted to find a way to have low overhead, and that was a great way to be able to do direct publishing.
The author's name is Samantha Whitton. And they could just look for you on Amazon, too.
That's
They can find all these books. Samantha, this has been a delight.
Thank you.
And this has been Jim Bratton Podcast. We're coming to you from Marvel Conference Room 206 today. Thanks for listening.
From Marmo Studio, you've been listening to Jim Bratton. This is Sierra Sakol.